Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Galactic Goddess TV. Today, we're joined by my dear sister, Angela Braden. She is a master EFT practitioner and founder of Primal Couples for a powerful conversation on the latest Psyop disguised as love. Aubrey Marcus's Radical Monogamy is the newest rendition of manipulation. So, welcome, Angela.
Thank you, Rhoda.
This is a loaded subject, so I'm really excited to have you and your expertise here today.
Thank you. Excited to be here. It's such an important topic.
So, jumping in, many of you have probably already watched that episode because it's been everywhere in the spiritual community. People are they have a lot of outrage about this actually, because basically what Aubrey Marcus did is take the word monogamy and he added radical to it to basically create a new word for like a threesome, you know? So um
It's part of this polyamory psyop that's been pushed on society for a while.
yeah. And why it matters and why it's worth talking about is because he has a huge audience. He's like m very mainstream, very big, but also a huge spiritual influencer. So what he says holds a lot of weight, in the communities. And what do you have to say about this? When you watched it, what what did you get from this
Yes. So at first, when I heard the rumblings, I felt threatened. I felt like the monogamy that I'm so passionate about and that I teach and that I think is sacred monogamy is so beautiful and so pivotal in our spiritual journey and just our human journey. And so I felt like ideology was being attacked and being masqueraded as spiritual and evolved. And of course, it hit me hard in that way, because it hurts my heart. I want people to be in monogamy and love and to be able to grow in their spirituality in that way through a sacred union. But honestly, Rhoda, the more I saw of the story and especially the backlash, I think it's actually good
Mhm.
because the backlash is so strong, and it's not just a lot of what we see in the culture wars of making people wrong and just fighting for what their opinion is. It
Mhm.
was very loving um, feedback from the spiritual community. I think because what Aubrey Marcus did sort of inadvertently is shine a light on the pain that
Mhm.
poly lifestyle causes. He really when his wife spoke out and was crying and saying that parts of herself had died, and just it was so obvious how much pain this what he's promoting is causing and does cause. And I think that has been missing from the polyamory propaganda that we've seen. As it's been asserted as a more pleasurable lifestyle, a more adventurous, more satisfying, and what's left out is all the pain and destruction that it causes. And I think that this story being so visual, being so in the spotlight, is really showing people more the dark side of it, and the fact that it is a recipe for destruction in the relationship and for pain and sadness, and not evolution, but
Yeah.
rather, as Valana, I believe is her name, the wife, as she
Mhm.
said, parts of her dying. So that's not evolution if parts of us are dying, especially since they had a sacred monogamy
Mhm.
before he decided to switch it up on her.
Yeah, that in watching the video, that's what he stated, that's what she stated is like he first approached her and invited her in and she's like, I'm not going to be part of that. And actually he liked her because she had boundaries, because she said no and she didn't want that. And so he said he was willing to give it all up to be with her. Then they got married and had a monogamous agreement in their marriage. And he just kind of cropped up and decided that, oh, the goddess is talking to me, which I personally, who I work with the goddess, I'm like, I'm so like, oh, you're giving the goddess a bad name here. Like, you have to like, please don't use the goddess. Take responsibility and say, I feel desire and I can't control it, and I need more women because I have to feed my entity or whatever. But don't use the goddess as your scapegoat. To me, that was like so insulting. And then he basically cropped up again and said, "Oh, the goddess is telling me that I need to have impregnate two women now at the same time." And like really disrespecting the divine feminine, and how like something as sacred as getting pregnant and having a baby, like that's a sacred journey for a couple, for two people to come together, and for the baby, that's the Holy Trinity, and creating that in that sacred space, and then to kind of degrade it by doubling it up. You just because you get the sense that this guy has a hungry ghost that he just can't feed. It's never satiated.
Yes, and I think that is also shining the true light on polyamory. What it is at the roots of it is it's an inversion of the sacred, and so to take it into the spiritual realm and say that, and to call it spiritual. And I think the latest term that he used was radical fidelity, which is just crazy because fidelity means faithful to the one person, right? Like, what are you being faithful to if you're sharing your sexual experience with more than one person? It's just gaslighting, it's illogical, and to cloak it in spirituality is just so wrong and so devastating for true spiritual growth. And I think that the reasons that um, obviously we can speculate what his true reasons are, but I can tell you from my experience working with couples, a lot of the reasons for this, they have nothing to do with the goddess or God or anything spiritual or holy, because we know that what is spiritual and holy is the sacred union, and there's a lot of power in that. But a lot of times people are drawn to poly uh, ideology and lifestyle because they have been cheated on before and hurt.
Mhm.
And he did share that that was part of his origin story, is he was just cheated on and very devastated. And so a lot of times what happens, excuse me, is people kind of give up in a way on they don't have the heart courage to open up to someone and completely trust them. But to completely trust our partner is the only way to real intimacy, true intimacy that is satisfying, fulfilling, and that's really going to elevate us spiritually, psychologically, in every single way. So I don't know if that is his reason. I think that if he is truly on a spiritual journey, needs to figure that out. Why is it just lust? Like you said, it could be just some hunger that is not being satiated in him. And there's so many things that you can do within the sacred union to elevate your sexual relationship, to explore, and to, I'm telling you, I've worked with couples, and this sexuality isn't even a big part of my program, but of course it's an important part of the relationship. And people who are having unsatisfying sex can radically turn that around with some intention and some techniques and visualizations and meditations. And it's different, unique, find your unique spice, within that sacred union. There's so much that we can do as couples that will truly satisfy the desire and whatever is not being satisfied.
I agree. And I'm just gonna throw it all the way into the spiritual perspective that sometimes also these are signs of people having an entity attachment. So like there's a feeding machine going on. This is very vampiric because this demon entity, whatever, could need more supply.
Mm.
And so like supply is a big deal. I think a lot of people in that realm probably are, they're attached to demons. So they have to feed this demon more supply. And that demon hooks into the root chakra and it feeds off of their root chakra, but it feeds off all the partners that they have, even after they are gone. So people think they're
Mm.
having like a one night stand and like kinky hookup, but then they leave and then the person that has that entity attachment is still feeding off of that lifeline, even after like for years and years, probably until that person is like, what's going on? I need to clear all the cords within me. And that's why
Yeah.
I think it's important to do clearings and to do healings and to work with somebody like Angela as well, because it's like that's where you need to come deeper back into yourself. The solutions aren't always a new person. Sometimes we have to become the new person.
Yes, and from a psychological perspective, it's a coping mechanism, just like any other addiction. It's the getting your dopamine in the wrong place problem. That is just classic of so many problems that we have in society today.
Absolutely. So, in the work that you do, has this issue ever cropped up, and how have you dealt with that, in
Mhm.
partnerships?
Yes, of course. We live in a culture that is sort of set up to sabotage the sacred union. And when you're talking about feeding on people, it's like such a dark um, place to be in this lifestyle. It's scientifically shown to cause more jealousy, emotional instability, and just mental unsteadiness in layman's terms, just because it is so fraught with pain. And that's what the entities feed off of, pain. So if they can create more pain and destruction, then polyamory is a great tool
Mhm.
for that in the spirit, if you look at it through a spiritual lens. But I have a lot of the tools that I use are to break down the barriers, which is emotional freedom technique. And I have a lot of influence from emotionally focused therapy also in my techniques, because that is the gold standard in couples therapy. And it's where the couples are listening and mirroring each other. So that's really what's shown to work the best. But emotional freedom technique, so EFT is the same acronym for both of modalities, just coincidentally. But emotional freedom technique is what I have my master's certification in, and that's the tapping, meridian tapping on the endpoints of our electrical system. And it comes from, if people who are familiar with acupuncture or acupressure, it's that same science, that same body of knowledge, and we can use those to calm down this parasympathetic nervous system, and then at the same time use neurolinguistics so we can figure out where exactly the barrier is coming from, if it was a past event or something from childhood, or a belief that's limiting about relationships. For example, men always cheat or women always cheat, and we can dissolve those barriers, and then
Mhm.
that paves a way for both partners to really open up and embrace true intimacy and really get into deep trust. I also have certification in hypnotherapy, which is not what people think of it as, the stage type of hypnotherapy, but it's just a way to get your cognitive mind out of the way so we can work with the subconscious mind and program the subconscious mind. And so I have specific scripts for building trust, and I have specific scripts for programming the mind of both partners to be oriented toward only their beloved and in
Mhm.
their sexuality. So
Mm.
it's all about containing the relationship, and the sexual energy is supposed to be contained
Mm.
in the relationship. We have to have boundaries around it for it to be sacred. And I was struck by watching the Aubrey Marcus coverage, especially the most recent interview with the, I believe, ex-girlfriend from almost 20 years ago who interviewed him, that these people don't seem to have a concept of containment or boundaries at all.
Mhm.
And he went, when he was interviewing the ex-girlfriend, he introduced her as his very best friend in the whole world ever. And even just that is uh, not not a contained relationship, and the fact that she was best friends with the other ex fiance, and that she was best friends with the current wife, and all of this is very messy. It doesn't have the contain. They're not containing
Mhm.
their romantic relationships. It's wonderful to love people.
Mhm.
Sure, love everyone, have an open heart, and have love for your fellow person, but your sexuality and your sexual energy needs to be contained in order for it to be precious, in order for it to be
Mhm.
sacred, in order for it to be divine, and in order for you to really advance in your humanness.
Hmm. Absolutely. I know I found that so shocking. And I had to question if she was on payroll because she's like, "Oh, you're very generous like to all, all of us." And then he basically her beloved works for him. Is an employee. So it's like
Mhm.
somehow like people still benefiting. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think she did work for his company. I don't know all the details, but like there's a vested interest. And so
Hmm.
I found a lot of the fake crying and I just found it like repulsive because
It's hard to watch.
well, it's not authentic. I am all
Yeah.
for people being authentic and like if real tears come, that can be beautiful. But there's a difference between going, oh, it's like, and there's no
Yeah.
tears, and it's like, okay, dude. I know you want us to feel sorry for you, but you made your own bed, bro. Like, the thing is, I it feels very exploitative. And then
Yeah.
bringing in the factor about the rabbi, what's his name, Mark Gaffney, to guide the spiritual process. But I'll just give a tiny bit about him because Mark Gaffney is known, he's had many allegations that are well documented about abusing minors that came
Mm.
forward to the New York Times. Um, women, or not women, girl, a 16-year-old is still a girl.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, and decades of grooming, manipulation, and coercion in the in the context of like spiritual therapy. So,
Mm.
100 rabbis have signed an open letter condemning Gaffney, warning communities to sever ties with him because he has been accused of being a pedo with a 13-year-old. So, I'm just a little bit confused as to why he thought that would be a divine authority figure to promote his radical monogamy. Like, that is
Right.
disgusting.
Right. And that's why it's a psyop, right? It's a
Mhm.
psychological operation using spirituality to do devious, evil work is nothing new.
Mhm.
And this is just another example of that, unfortunately. And I think that people are waking up to all of this. People are waking up to all the psyops in our culture, and on a psychological level, and on a cultural level, and on a spiritual level too. And just the fact that there's so much heaviness and depression and crying and destruction and like cracks in the foundation of all of their interviews is just shining a light on how devastating this is, how there's no joy. And it's,
Yeah.
like the lies that the polyamory propaganda has sold us is that it's so joyful, it's so pleasurable, it's so evolved, it's so we're so above it all, But
Yeah.
that's a lie, and the lie is just being displayed in full force. I think with this,
Mhm.
because not only I mean, the ex-fiance that interviewed him like 2 weeks ago was crying on that interview and said that she was. I don't know if she said she like, was crying every day or that she was saddened every single day. I thought where she was going with that was because of the relationship she has with the wife, and that she was sad to see the wife's experience and her broken heart of having to now open up her marriage. But then I realized that they were just talking about the crying from the negative feedback, I guess. I don't It's just unbelievable. The callousness of that.
It is unbelievable. Like it's horrifying. Like yeah, when I get married, like you're not gonna I'm not gonna be best friends with my with any of my exes because like that's like you can have like if you're single, you can still be friends with your exes and blah blah blah. But when you get into a divine union, it's exclusive. That means like your partner is like your partner on all levels. You're not gonna have your ex as your bestie. Like that doesn't work with the dynamics because what I'm seeing is a lot of enabling, but I also see
Mhm.
it as like paid enabling because they're directly benefiting. Like her partner works for him directly. She's worked for him. I'm not sure if she still does, but she was working for him. So there was a lot of financial compensation going on here.
Yeah, and it's just like they said the quiet part out loud, right? If there are these financial ties,
Right.
that's crazy. And but even if there weren't the financial ties, the fact that they're putting this out there like she's my best friend ever, that is not a container.
Yeah,
You're not containing your honoring your wife. If
exactly.
your wife should be your very best friend,
Exactly.
right? And so even just saying things like that is it's asserting this idea of like nothing's sacred, nothing's special, just for the two people.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I love having my man just only we share. Only he knows the side of me. Like only he experiences that energy. It's contained for us. And how can anything else replace that feeling of this is just for us? That's sacred.
So sacred. It is such a sexual energy is the most sacred energy. And to be in a divine union, a marriage is so sacred. That's why I've never been married yet because I'm like, okay, well, it has to be the right person because I it's gonna be forever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, I mean, some people just don't take these things very seriously. They think it's a joke, but in some ways they're disrespecting their own soul because they're making their own love life a joke, you know? And I just think it's, to find your partner, to have a marriage, that's the most beautiful gift you can ever have in your life. And to just disrespect it on every level. Um, I couldn't imagine. I almost cried when I was watching, Vailana because I'm like, this woman is like, she is trying to grit it out. Like, I can handle this, and she's just like, you could see her heart's breaking and bleeding. Like, if you're an empath, you can feel the utter
Yeah.
grief. But I mean, how is that progress? Like if your wife is brokenhearted all the time because you need to feed on fresh, whatever you want to call it, then
Mhm.
how is that divine? How can you
Right.
and how can you feel like I was surprised how he was just like sitting back while she's crying. It's almost like he enjoyed that um she's suffering over him.
She's sacrificing her soul for
Sacrifice.
him.
Yeah.
It's an ego. I mean, I don't know him, but it looks like he's feeding his ego on her pain.
Yeah.
And I we should mention we did maybe we can post the episode that you and I did I think it was 9 months ago about casual sex and
Mhm.
how that is a lie. That is a betrayal of our soul, and we're exchanging this sacred energy that's meant to be divine, and how that hurts us. It hurts our hearts. It hurts our soul. Psychologically, obviously, it can be painful. But this poly stuff is like next level. Even it's way worse because you know, if you're having a casual sex encounter, that that's what it is, and you're not opening your heart, you have your guard up, and there's problems with that. I'm definitely not advocating for it, but at least you know you're calling it what it is, and you aren't opening up as much in that way. But with this type of relationship with Aubrey Marcus and Milana, they were very bonded, pair bonded. Like our species we're pair bonding species. And they dove deep into that. And then to take that away is very damaging. It's very wounding. And it's just showing us the lie that is polyamory lifestyle, because it's saying you can be emotional and loving and even spiritual and have, have that within more than one person in that. And it's just absolutely devastating. It's opening people up to so much pain and suffering.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about how divine union is here to bring healing to the world, because
Mm,
that is like the number one most precious thing on this earth besides children and the innocent. But it's what the creator gave us. Like, it's a gift that God gave us to be here, that we would have that union that was so powerful and strong, that it brings out the best in you. And of course it brings out also the pain and stuff, because you're gonna have to purge through the fears, because of course insecurities, fears, traumas come up if you didn't have that stability growing up, which most of us
mhm.
have not, right? Most of us
Yeah,
come from broken families, and so
yes,
it's like the scariest thing in the world. Like, how can I believe in this when I've never known it myself? I've never seen it myself. But we're here to create a new paradigm, and part of that is these divine unions. And so what they do is they actually everything in this world has been inverted. So this is actually like healing our timeline. It starts to bring in the higher timelines. It starts to bring ripples of healing throughout the whole entire world. When two beloveds come together and they're true to each other, um, sure, they might have to go through like, healing or therapy or whatever, just to clear out those imprints, right? Because we've all been imprinted with distortion and inversions. That's all
yeah,
we've known. That's all we see. We watch them in TV shows. We watch them on TV.
yeah,
That's all we see, is how love hurts, and love is devastating, and love is destructive, and love is gonna break our heart, and maybe even kill us because of the pain, but we're actually
yeah,
here to figure out what love means, not by any of those terms, but like through the divine. And we have to
yeah,
experience it ourselves. It has to be an experiential. And it means we have to face the scariest things. And like you said, like those wounds that if we've been betrayed, we have to start bringing healing to that so that we can come together. And then when you come together, I believe you hold those frequencies in such divine alignment, and that
yeah,
starts to ripple out into the world. So divine unions are like, they are the most powerful healing things I think we could ever have. And they're also what the demons don't want to have the most. And that's why everything in our society has been using, like, you know, corn and all of these over sexualized things to try to get people to be lusty instead of in their heart. And
yeah,
we're being called to come back home, because we are separated from our soul when we are doing all that stuff, and we want to come back. And a divine union is part of coming back home to who we are.
yes. It's so healing and it's so powerful. And that is why it's targeted.
Mhm.
And I want to mention Kim Anami's work here because she talks a lot about the healing power of sacred monogamy, and she has studied for decades the Taoist traditions and the a lot of the energy psychology that I work with too. They're all interrelated, and there are meridian endpoints in, let's say, without getting too graphic, involved in the sexual experience that are stimulated in ways that they ignite our soul. There's neurocircuitry involved. It's real, scientifically based, powerful psychological transformation, healing. All of that is possible through that, and you're not going to share that with more than one person. Even there's even a scientific study showing that the oxytocin and vasopressin that is flowing in sexuality is specifically for pair bonding. It's not for it's it is creating a pair bond, especially if it's repeated, which in poly relationships you would not like the one night stand like we talked about. It's repeated release of these powerful neurochemicals over and over. And a big influence on my work has been neuropsychology. And one of the main tenets of neuroscience is that neurons that fire together wire together. So if you're firing neurons that are your sexuality and neurons that are associated with your beloved, those are wiring together as part of the fabric of your beings. And you become, your relationship is its own entity.
Mhm.
But if you dilute that, then it's very much, just by definition, diluted, dispersed. It's not going to be ever going to be the powerful experience, the elevated, evolved experience that it could have been. So it's just such a sad sacrifice. And I wish people knew how, not easy, but how simple and quick, like lightning speed, it can be to overcome these barriers in relationship and to be able to open your heart and not have to resort to these sort of coping mechanisms that feel like they're keeping us more safe because we don't have to risk opening our heart.
Mm. It's so powerful.
Every couple can do it. They can overcome whatever is in the way of that and then just embrace what you really your heart's desire is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think now is there's no other time than now to come back into our hearts, especially as the new technologies coming forward and everything in this world. I mean, I think AI can be used for really good, but also, they're going to be using it for really distorted stuff too, because they're the goal of the dark is basically to take us away from our hearts, to take us away from our hearts and to take away from our soul, so that because it's a war over our souls, and we're gonna have to be really discerning because there's gonna be a lot of temptations to be coming into something that's easier. Like I think you can use AI and it's good for different things, but like, when it comes to your heart, to like your romantic relationships, nothing can nothing can take the place of a true living divine being that is connected and plugged into source energy, and I think that we have to protect our hearts, in the sense of like this, I know I'm saving this for like the right person.
Yeah.
I'm saving it for someone who's doing the work, who can meet me. And also another thing is like you're allowed to sow your wild oats and go crazy and do whatever you need to do in your younger years. But as you start to come into maturity, you can learn from everything. And that's the crazy part of this whole thing is like he had wild, poly relationships his whole life, and then he was like gonna sow his while, he's done with that now, and he wanted to move into monogamy. And then he just like got her completely hooked in to this love, and they went really deep, and her heart is committed, and her womb is already committed. Like every part of her being, her heart, mind, body, womb is committed. And then he just decides to change it up because he needs more supply or whatever his deal is. And so That's the thing is like every people have a right to experience what they need to experience, but when you come into a divine union and a sacred marriage, you can't kind of you need to step in and walk the path. Like you can't just go back and forth on it, because that's
Yeah,
going back and forth on your word. And your word creates worlds. And what kind of world are you creating when you betray the one you love the most and the one that loves you the most? You're creating chaos and trauma. So,
exactly. Yes. And then to call it, it's just not an integrity. If that's what you want to do, then call it what it is.
mhm,
Don't call it honoring the person. You're not honoring the person.
yeah.
And, it is absolutely devastating for the wife. But I also have to point out it's devastating for him too, because he is not going to get to experience his wife in full surrender, completely open, every the type of energy that comes through to the man
Mhm.
when the woman completely trusts him
Yeah.
and knows that it's sacred and knows that it's only for them.
Yeah.
He's robbing himself of that experience. And I would bet anything that it's going to hurt him just as much, if not more, than, it's hurting his wife right now.
Mhm.
Because he has, like you said, they've gone deep, and he has had the experience now of her full surrender in that way. And that is not, there's no way she can, that's just not how it works neurobiologically, spiritually. It's a creative force, like you said, Rada. You just nailed it with that. It creates life. That's how powerful it is. And so, what are you creating if you're using it in a way that is dishonoring to your partner and that is not spiritually evolved? What are you creating? And I think that's the question that people have to ask themselves if they're being pulled into this ideology. It's just really look at what it is inside you that is a need that's unmet, or a belief that you think that you can't have trust between or you can't have monogamy. It's like there's a lot of ideology out there that says, that it's unnatural
Mhm.
to be monogamous. It's impossible. No one can really do it. That is such lies. It is absolute lies. I promise you, I've seen so many beautiful examples of couples of all walks of life, all types of backgrounds, who are able to come together and absolutely be 100% devoted to each other and to realize the sacred union and their absolute dream relationship. And it's just a lie to suggest that we can't have that,
Mm.
because every couple can have that. And if, I think Aubrey Marcus is cheating himself, and he's so obviously miserable. I'm sorry. I'm not, I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost, it's not funny, but it's almost comical how the inversion is so blatant. It's so obviously making everyone miserable.
Yeah. It's such a betrayal to himself. And you can see he's not relaxed and happy. He's trying to convince the world that this is divine. It's like if you have to work that hard to convince, like first of all, you don't need to convince the world of anything. If you're in a happy relationship, that can just be between two people. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? But like it's almost like he had to prove that this is divine. So I'm going to tell the whole world that I'm in a radical monogamous, aka threesome. And so and I need their approval because I'm that insecure. It's like,
yeah,
if you are in a divine union, you don't need to prove anything to anybody because that relationship is just two people. It's between those two people and the divine and God. You know what I'm saying? So
yes,
do all that. Like he's just spinning himself into a frenzy. And it's like crazy to watch because he even did a follow-up video after his first one got tanked and he deleted all the comments. He deleted them, shut it off. He's like, I don't want to hear it. He's like, oh, and he compared himself to going through a witch hunt. Everyone's trying to get me. Honey, you're not in a witch hunt. You went on Raya. You decided to get a third party. You're the one doing this. You got a download from an entity, not ISIS. And
Mhm.
like what are you doing? It's almost like you can see the self-sabotage all over him.
Mhm.
And this is what
Yeah.
men do when they're not in their divine masculine energy. You know,
Yes, and that's another reason that they'll never experience the ultimate sex. That they'll never experience the ultimate feminine surrender because even if it's just subconscious, women see that as weak.
mhm.
They read that instinctively, viscerally in their body as a weak masculine, and that is not compelling. That
No.
is not opening to the feminine.
It's such a turnoff. And it's like if he thinks that he's gonna get the fullness of his wife, even if she wants to, she'll probably never be able to do it again. Because when a woman is broken, once she has loved with every ounce of her soul, her heart, mind, body, womb, her soul, and you betray that and you just break her heart, and she's still trying to love and she's bleeding while she's loving. Um, there's a part of her that's always going to have her defenses up. Always.
Right,
She's going to be, I can't
exactly.
give you everything anymore. Even if she's going through the act with him, he will feel like there's something missing because there is something
Because
missing.
there is.
Because that feminine flow comes from the divine and it comes so fully when a woman loves a man, like she will love him. But like once a woman starts to realize this, like, I'm hurting. This is betrayal. Like there's something wrong here. Once she start, I mean, it's a slow process. A woman can back away very, very slowly because she's still
Mhm.
processing. But
Right,
once a woman decides you've betrayed me, you have crossed me, you have hurt my divine feminine, you have abused me, there's no going back. There's no going, it doesn't matter how deep that love is. You had
right,
a man really has one shot. Like you got to do it right. And you can't mess with divine love because you can't just be like, "Oh, I decided, I changed, I want to come back." Like you know how many times that's happened? Like I would never go back to that, to any of those
right.
exes because I know who they are innately. I've bled, I've cried, I know who they are. And I know they'll do it again once they get a chance. And so the women start to look at these men as very untrustworthy. And
Mhm.
once she sees him as that, game is over. It doesn't matter if it takes 5 years.
Right. It's the beginning of the end.
Yeah,
Polyamory, I tell all my couples because it is trendy and there's so much propaganda to try to convince people that this is an adventurous thing to try. And it is the beginning of the end. Every single time, I literally don't know a single couple that has lasted in
right.
that. And I'm sure there are people who have, for long periods of time, but I would suggest that they are not operating on a very high level spiritually or psychologically. And the science backs that up too, in terms of just the anxiety is higher. And anxiety and mental instability are dangerous to our health, as we've
Yeah.
talked about, Rada. You know that more than anyone, from the work that you do, that kind of angst is taking a toll on our physical health as well.
Absolutely. And I think for women, sometimes it can be a slow process, where they're in relationship or marriages for a long period of time, and there was a significant betrayal, and they thought, I can get over this, I can heal. But
Hmm.
once a woman starts to really understand mentally, like this dude isn't out for my best interest, once she can reckon with that, she will slowly inside of herself, you may not even know, she will start to recoil herself from, she'll be energetically repulsed. She might still go through the motions and stuff like that, but at some point, like men don't
Hmm.
understand that women that are serious about love and are
Hmm.
serious about they're serious about it because to a woman, love is everything. And when people
Hmm.
play with that, they take that seriously too. And even if they don't act on it right away, like I think at some level, a woman starts to realize like I'm betraying myself here.
Yes, it is soul betrayal.
Yeah, I'm cheating myself. I'm cheating myself by being agreeable because
Mhm.
a man that really chooses me and wants me and loves me, like there's no other woman for him, you know?
Absolutely. And there are those masculine, divine masculine men out there
Hmm.
that they would never want to share their woman. And that's the only kind of man you should ever entertain. I think that this, a lot of the reason for what everything you just described is because women think that it's that all men are like that and that that's just the way it is. I mean, we're told that. And
Yeah,
it's just such a lie. It's not true. And same for the women. You know, there's a lot of um talk in the relationship and dating space of, all women are going to cheat. And um, it causes so much toxicity when absolutely not. No, just find the right type of woman who is mature and who understands, and the right type of man that understands how to create the container.
yeah,
It's got to be a container and it's its own entity. So you take care of this entity that is the two of you, the two of you created, and you guard that with everything that you do and everywhere. Like you're not being best friends with your ex-girlfriends and having them all, be best friends with each other and all of this delusion and dilution, right? It's diluting. Like if
yeah,
we're circuits, we're our bodies are energetic circuits. And so if we connect with our beloved, then we're amplifying the circuitry between the two of us. But if then we go off in all these other directions, it gets weaker, right? It's just illogical.
it's so logical. It doesn't make any sense. And I think in a lot of cults, they teach poly because actually a tool of control because
Exactly.
that way they always separate and divide and conquer. You can never be attached because devotion is the most divine thing you could ever have. Like the devotion you have for a creator, the devotion that you have for your beloved, the devotion you have for your child. That kind of love, devotional love is on another level. It's not like I love you because you get me really nice things or I love you because like you're convenient, like whatever these things are because you're hot because that's not a reason to like that's not love, that's lust. Don't be confused, and I think you
Yeah.
have to have an emotional capacity. There are people who are only devoted to themselves in this world, their desires. And those are the kind of people you don't want to have relationships to because those people they break everybody on their path. And so
Yeah.
if you want devotional love, you got to see, you need to first of all know, do I give with devotional love? And you will know if you do because so many times
Mhm.
you know, it's a learning experience. The people who give devotional love have to learn how to be more discerning with their heart. You don't just give
Yes.
heart just because somebody's fun and exciting and all the things that you want on paper. Like they have to honor your heart. I think that's the number one question people should ask. Like am I honoring my heart and does this person honor my heart?
Mm.
Will they protect my heart?
Hmm. Right. Will they protect the container
Hmm.
and not, be looking at corn like you brought up, or not be um, messaging exes or looking at Instagram models. All
Exactly.
of those things create leaks in the container,
Yeah.
and you can absolutely find a partner who understands that and wants the same thing. And we're not condemning anyone, obviously, if people are at different places in their journey, and
Yeah.
if they're just not ready for that, that's fine, but call it what it is. Don't
Yeah.
call it, radical monogamy or whatever you call, like, don't call it a spiritually awakening thing. It's just not ever going to be that.
Exactly. I think so. Just to recap, you guys, like this conversation is based on what was Divine Union. They even sold programs on Divine Union, so I think that's very
Mhm.
misleading. And
Mhm.
then they decided to crop up and create new terminologies such as, radical monogamy because they were gonna have a permanent threesome. And so, like, that's first of all, no. Okay. First of all, no. Second of all, no. Third of all, no. It's a no across
Gaslighting.
the board. Like that's just crazy making. And so if like wherever you are in your life, like everyone's in different places. We've all been in different places. We learn by experience, but at a certain age where you're planning on getting married, or if you are in a marriage, either you're going to be devotional or you're not. There's no in betweens. There's no in betweens. Like you're gonna be devotional or you're not. Period. That is
Right,
it. Get a divorce. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Stop with the BS. Like you're gaslighting everybody because what he was trying to do is inject into the entire society that it's super monogamous and radical if you have a permanent threesome and you're married. Like, no, dude, you just haven't sowed your wild oats. You need to go, handle yourself. Maybe you'll never grow up and maybe you don't need a marriage. But
Hmm.
for
It's
other people,
emotional immaturity. And
yeah.
I think that is obvious. And I think that it really backfired on him. And it's kind of really illuminating the truth behind polyamory.
Yeah, I'm really grateful. I'm grateful that he brought this up because it's caused a conversation and it really it's like these are conversations you need to have when you're dating for marriage. You have to ask like what's the longest you've been monogamous in a relationship? Is it possible? And I think you people need to talk about their addictions. People hide their addictions. And
Hmm.
then they come into the marriage pretending to be in a divine union. Meanwhile, they have sex addictions and corn addictions and all kinds of addictions. And you really need to go over all that stuff before you step into maybe even a relationship because I think like women aren't taught to ask the right questions. Like it never I want to, it never occurs to you, like, how do you ask stuff like that? Like, how do you ask stuff like that? So you can walk us through a first example, like if you're,
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important, and it is not something we need to be afraid of. We don't need to be afraid on either side of it. If you have things that are in the way that you're struggling with, whether it's trust issues, fear of intimacy, if you're afraid that you can't be faithful yourself, why is that? There's a reason. We can unearth that, and we can dissolve it. It's Don't be afraid of it because we can fix it. And then on the other side, also just don't be afraid to ask, what are you looking for? I like for dating couples to ask open-ended questions in the beginning, especially. Um, what are you looking for? And just let them talk. Just get them to talk. And you'll see, you'll know, tune into your heart and what they're saying. It's going to be either authentic and it's going to show their growth and maturity and how they've arrived at where they are on their journey and what they are looking for. If they are looking for um, sacred union, ultimately marriage, monogamous, um, divine union, if they're a spiritual person, especially, you'll know. You'll hear it out of their mouth,
yeah,
right? If you hear things like uncertainty, I don't know, I'm just, wandering through life kind of thing, that's a pass. And then, if you hear sort of the inauthentic show, like performative answers, you can usually feel that too. And just take it slow. Don't attach too fast
yeah,
and let people really show you their values and their character.
Whew, it's such a big, important thing. I think proper dating, I think women, and men too, because a lot of times men should be able to ask questions to women. Like, you have a right to know if you're looking for your person.
Hmm.
It's not just like, okay, we're just gonna try, we're gonna jump both feet in first and figure it out as we go. That's part of the process, but that's like you want to get to know somebody. I think taking it slow, like spending time with somebody, like asking just, I think feeling relaxed in asking questions, even if it's a little uncomfortable. And also not getting defensive if people are asking you questions, because sometimes I've felt like I've tried to ask questions in past dating scenarios, and like I've experienced like men being very like very dismissive of it. And it's like, if I can't ask you questions, so I can the reason why we ask questions is so we can understand you, so we can
Yeah,
understand who you are. And that's how we fall in love too, because it's through understanding your psychology, like who are you at the core of your being? Like why do you believe this? Why do you believe that? Like being curious. We should be able to be curious about each other, you know?
absolutely. I think as long as you're asking it out of curiosity, there's no reason for there to be resistance or any. It's not about shaming or
Yeah, it's not.
labeling the person. It's about really getting to know their values and what matters to them and what they want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think we'll have to do another episode. I think that would be fun to do one about dating, like how to
Yeah.
approach dating in this world. And but this was such a powerful, potent conversation, and I know it's fully loaded. So do you want to share anything else?
I would just say for people who are spiritual and they're on their spiritual journey, just always tune in to that divine guidance and don't be fooled by these psyops that masquerade as spirituality. And I know that a lot of people have benefited from plant medicine, ayahuasca rituals, and all of that. I know that that can be a good modality. I just think that I would love for you to speak to how can people, I think people need to be careful though. I mean, we're not, all of us are not as equipped to go into the spiritual realm because there's warfare there, right, Rada? Like you
Absolutely.
have to be very either guided by someone really well, or I'll just ask you, but I'm very wary of people doing a lot of ayahuasca rituals and that's where Aubrey says he's gotten these ideas and that he's been spiritually compelled through those experiences to basically betray his marriage. And I think that I would love for you to speak to how can people explore and with plant medicines or on their healing journey, but without just with understanding that other things can come through as well as divine,
Absolutely.
other things that are not divine that are going to lie to you and then take you off the right spiritual path can also come through.
Oh, this is true. This is true because it's a portal. And so like for example, my mom, the shaman, she's had to deal with a few people that had went through the Aya journey, and they had an entity attached to them, and they couldn't get it off, so they called her, and she had to do an exorcism. And
Mm,
so for me personally, I think it's an incredibly powerful, potent medicine, but I really think it's important to do the work beforehand.
mhm,
And I mean like shadow work, like
mhm,
looking at the parts of ourselves that were wishy-washy in certain areas. And like it's very important, because had I not done some of this deep, deep, deep shadow work, I could have had really bad experiences, because I did see a lot of I saw demons, entities, archons. I saw them. You know what I mean? But they couldn't attach to me. because
Yeah.
I do a lot of prayer, I do a lot of protection, and I am divinely protected, but not everyone has that experience. Some people don't. And then also, let's just talk about something else. Like, say somebody, I'm not going to mention his name, but say he works with a darker demon entity. That's his spirit guide. Like, he works with that. He feeds that through his
Mm.
sexuality, and that demon feeds him in this world more abundance, right? So
Hmm.
there's that deal going on. So when he's doing ayahuasca, that demon is going to present itself. It might be a fairy, it might be beautiful, but that demon can shapeshift, right? So
Right.
if you already don't have, if you're already not in alignment with the divine creator source, then when you come in, it can be damaging because this being is just playing with you because you already have that contract or whatever. It just amplifies into something else. So in that case, you're already not being authentic with yourself.
Right.
And then it's just more of the same BS, different ayahuasca day. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
medicine has to be used with your purest heart. Like when you come, you are humble and you are not trying to manipulate the situation to get your needs met. You're going
Mhm.
because you have an intention of healing, and so you will have a healing experience. But if you are already distorted and you know that you need more supply, your experience will be completely distorted too, different. So
Oh,
everything
that's good.
everything is about intention. And so like the intention, who you are is amplified in these situations.
And we can see evidence that for sure it's not always divine guidance that comes through
Yeah.
because it's obviously not divine guidance to betray your marriage and force polyamory onto your marriage. So
Yeah.
just
But
be
also,
careful. Just be
but also you
careful.
don't know if that person is making that up like afterwards
Right.
to make
Absolutely.
they're using that. I actually felt really like resentful towards him because he actually destroyed the name of Aya. Like
Mm,
he made it like so distorted that people are like, "Oh, that's like for crazy, hip
right.
whatever," instead of like it's a medicine. It's actually medicine for your soul. And he took that medicine, but that's, you know, no labeling, but narcissists in general, they will take anything beautiful and invert it. It doesn't matter if it's God, it doesn't matter if it's Aya, it doesn't matter if it's divine union. They're going to find
Mhm.
a way to invert it because that's the frequency that they're working on.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty upset because Aya has actually helped a lot of people to heal like really deep things, but you have to I do think it's important to do like your shadow work. It's important to face your demons before you step in to a place like that. And you have to be, speaking of radical, you have to be radically honest with yourself and be
Hmm.
willing to see the parts of yourself that's lying to yourself because we have mechanisms within us, every person on earth, because of trauma. When we fracture, we create new mechanisms. There's new parts of us that are born to deal with these traumas. And if we just use those parts, they can be very distorted. And the whole point of this life is like we have all these trauma distortions and we need to start healing them and coming back into union with ourself so that we can be in union with our beloved and with the creator.
I
So
love that.
yeah. So that's my long answer.
I love it. I love it. It's so aligns perfectly with what I see couples go through with this transformation. It's really beautiful because they realize that it really isn't hard. It really is possible, and they can have what they truly desire, and heal from their traumas, whether they're from childhood or past relationships.
Yep.
And you don't have to bring that into your current relationship. You can heal that, and you don't also, people think you have to be so healed before you come into the sacred union of, you know, your divine partner. And you don't have to, you just have to not be dysfunctional. So from a psychological perspective, you can't be so dysfunctional that you're creating destruction in the relationship. But you, by all means, do not have to be a perfectly healed
Yeah.
being. In fact, if you can heal inside the divine union way faster and to much higher levels than you can heal on your own ever. It's an amplification that God created, and we it's a beautiful, sacred, truly sacred, not just hijacking the word and using it for something that is a base level coping mechanism at best. It's you can have the real sacred.
Yeah,
Every couple can,
I
if they
believe
want it,
that.
if that's
Yeah,
what they really.
I think that's so true. It's like if two people come with, you have to be vulnerable and authentic. After you've gone through the dating process, you can go deeper. And there are many, I think, layers. And that's like the gift that the creator gives us is like we have all been through so much. It's been a blender here on earth. And each one of us has been in that blender. And it's like we get to come and into union and bring healing to each other because we both know we've been through a lot. But so
Mhm.
what? We can be better, stronger, more powerful in that love, in that container, as you said. And I really see it as that sacred container. We don't contaminate it. We don't dirty it. We don't drag garbage into our container. We're trying to get garbage out so we can have a clean, purified container that we can co-live in. And
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I love the work that you're doing. So do you want to speak on the work that you're doing and how people can get a hold of you?
Yes, so I have a little video that overviews the couples program. It's called Primal Couples from Struggling to Soaring, because it is a soaring feeling when you're elevated into this perfect union. And it's possible when you just dissolve those barriers. And I work with what's called like the third wave of in the psychology field is energy psychology. And it's actually has a lot of scientific basis now. And they've even done studies with emotional freedom technique, which is what I'm certified in. And that's just one of the energy psychologies. EMDR is a very popular, effective modality as well. And these are the third wave, and they are fast. They are lightning speed. So things that may have taken talk therapy years to dissolve and heal can be done in one session or two or three sessions. It's like super fast and effective. And then I combine that with, like I mentioned, the emotionally sort of elements of emotionally focused therapy where the person, one partner is talking about something that hurt them or a limiting belief that they have or a desire that's unmet, something they're talking about it and we're tapping at the same time and the listening partner is just listening and taking it all in. And so the tapping allows the listening partner to not be defensive, to really listen and just take it and tune in to the talking partner. And then the talking partner, the tapping allows them to release pain. It allows them to release fear and really be heard. And then we reverse and the listening partner mirrors back their understanding of what they heard. And this it can happen in like 5 minutes. Something that was coming between the couple for years can be dissolved. And
Mm,
then we work on the limiting beliefs, of course, kind of in the same way, like we do the setup statement tapping. We've done it together, Rada, where
mm,
you have a belief that is in the way, and you can tell your mind to tag that belief in your neurocircuitry that we're going to overwrite it now with a positive statement that is true. You have to have some belief of it, and it is true. I mean, I won't lead you astray. It's something that is true, but you can overwrite your doubt with this sort of affirmation truth statement, and it dissolves the fear and it dissolves the boundaries or the barriers, and the things that get in the way of true intimacy. And so we just rapid fire break all those walls down. And then we also go in with hypnotherapy scripts for divine fidelity, where you can program your mind. You will never not even associate anything romantic or sexual with anyone but your beloved. It's 100% oriented toward them, and they know it, and you can mirror it back, and it just creates so much stability, like such a strong foundation in the relationship, and so much this feeling of discovery and adventure as a couple too, where I think a lot of the poly people are drawn to poly for that idea, but they don't actually get that out of poly. They get that out of the sacred union. You can really go deep, you can go higher, and experience so much more
Hmm.
within your divine union.
Hmm. Oh, that's so amazing.
But I have that video. People can like it's only like 20 minutes. It will give you a little more detail of how the
Okay.
program works. It's only 4 weeks, and that's on Expertise TV. And you can set up a consultation, a free consultation, if you want to be in our next cohort.
Yay. So I'll put that information below. And yeah, I can attest I've done the tapping and it's so amazing. Like really deep stuff, deep traumas can be released like very quickly and very efficiently. And you start to, so what it is like our traumas, there's so much energy around, there's so much like energy. So it makes it more neutral. So when you tap, it neutralizes it. So you don't get that trigger that you had. And it's so powerful. I really believe in the power of healing, and I think this is a great modality because you get through it faster. It's not like you're just talking for hours and hours about the same stuff, not making progress. I like to make progress, and I like to use
Yes.
systems and modalities that can help cut through the chase, save time, save energy, save money, but also like that gets to the root because we have to go to the
Yes.
root of where all of this stuff first came from so that we can start to clear it out and
Yes.
start to see the possibilities that are available to us. I know, like we were saying earlier, that this world, everything that shows that it's not possible to have a loving monogamous relationship, a healthy marriage. But I believe that's up to us and the work that we do on ourselves and the work and who we bring to the table when we get
Yes.
into our relationship. Because the world's always going to have its opinion and it doesn't matter anymore. Like, what do you want out of your life? So,
Especially spiritual people,
yeah.
especially our spiritual community, because you know God created you for this. You were
Mhm.
made for this. So embrace it, believe in it, and go for it.
Mm.
It's waiting for you.
That made me happy. Thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you all for tuning in. Please share, like, subscribe, share this video, share your thoughts, anything that stood out for you because we would love your feedback so we can come back and do another one. And
Thank you, Rana.
yeah, thank you. Bye for now.